You're listening to Secrets for Scaling, a Gecko Board podcast that explores the growth secrets of successful founders and CEOs. Whether you're just launching your business or taking your company to the next level, you'll learn proven strategies and tactics for growing a sustainable business. For this episode, we talked to Drew Bilbe, co-founder and CEO of Nexba, a natural Australian beverage brand making real iced tea and natural cola. Hey Drew, welcome. So to get started, can you tell us a little bit about what Nexba is for any listeners who might not be familiar?
Sure. So I'll just go through a little bit of the Nexba story. Essentially, I started Nexba back in 2010. I was fortunate enough back then to do an exchange semester in Mexico. And while I was over there, I spent a lot of time in a little surf town called Rio Nexba. That whole sort of like better for you beverage space over there was really matured, and they seem to have a lot of sort of low sugar, like soft drinks, in particular iced tea. And that's represented, I guess, throughout, Central America, North America, and Asia and Europe as well. Coming back to Australia, we had, a couple of Me Too brands in the iced tea category. There wasn't a huge amount of better for you beverage activity going on. So I basically tapped my brother-in-law on the shoulder and said, look, I really think this is a massive opportunity in Australia for the iced teas themselves, but also sort of that, reduced sugar soft drink area. So we basically spent the next year building a factory in Sydney. It was a little tiny canning factory that did about 2,000 cans an hour. We had family and friends. My grandpa, I think, was the best worker, working like 18 hours a day, just sort of getting it off the ground and basically creating a dream product, which at the time was a low sugar iced tea. We then, I guess, spent the next 12 months after that really knocking on cafe doors and getting people's response and feedback, and finding out that, yes, this is a real opportunity in Australia. People have been looking for this type of drink. And then I guess we started going to the national, the really big national accounts like 7-Eleven, some of our supermarkets over here called Coles and Woolworths, and really getting into those guys so we could have that, availability on a national level, and also that brand awareness piece.
Interesting. When you were first knocking on doors to see if there was a market for Nexba, what type of questions were you asking?
It was more sort of, I guess, explaining the product and what we believed was the opportunity. And then they would put it in their fridges and it would sell. And it was clear from that, it was kind of like a proven case that, yes, this is something that we're looking for. So everyone, I guess, believes in, and has for a long time, really believes in that health sector and the growing health sector. But what's great now is that people are actually opening up their wallets and paying for those healthy products.
That's awesome. It sounds like a great, scrappy story. You guys just believed in what you're doing and made it happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
So is Nexba your first business?
So I sort of studied in Mexico, and I was actually studying, I did one semester over there and finished off my civil engineering degree in Australia. So I was working as a civil engineer at the time of starting Nexba, and Troy was actually working as a law and communications intern as well. So this is our first business that we started, but we were sort of doing, two jobs at once, kind of trying to make it work when we started Nexba.
What was that experience like, doing the two jobs at once?
Yeah, obviously time management. I was fortunate at that stage to not have kids yet, so could manage my time a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, you're burning the candle at both ends, and you're working sort of 20 hours a day. But I guess the passion and motivation of what you believe in is really what gets you, keep going every day.
Did you find that there's a time frame that was sustainable for? Or did you kind of hit your limit, or were you lucky enough to reach that breaking point before hitting that limit?
I was lucky in that Troy and I had the same level of motivation and passion. So there's always going to be times when you're working ridiculously hard for long periods of time and trying to get something off the ground. It isn't necessarily going exactly how you want it to. But I guess if you've got a really good business partner or people, a team in your business that can, I guess sometimes take the load or use them to bounce off and get motivation, it really helps.
Yeah. I feel like people used to talk about that motivation a little bit more, or that struggle and how you have to work 20-hour days. But I feel like now everyone's just like, it's about work-life balance. But in the reality of things, in the early days, you just have to hustle.
Oh, no doubt. You've just got to put in the hard yards.
So would you say that support network's what motivated you to start a business?
Definitely, if I didn't have the support from family, friends, and obviously within the business wouldn't be here today. So, I mean, it's that support network is crucial in terms of those really tough early stages. And to an extent, you're being selfish because, you know, your loved ones kind of have to put up with you working 20 hours a day and all that kind of stuff. So it is something where people, you know, the people doing the work has to really work hard, and the people that are sort of supporting have to be pretty understanding of what you're doing. For sure.
So what were some of the first roadblocks you hit at that point when still, you know, working on it for so long?
Well, neither Troy and I had any experience in the beverage industry. So everything for us was a learning curve from the start. You know, just going and finding out the right contacts to chat to, for example, from 7-Eleven. You know, that took us like 12 months. You know, learning how to run a business from a budgeting point of view and all that kind of stuff is something that we hadn't done in our other jobs. So every little aspect of Nexba was a learning curve for us, and it's, you know, it's certainly been a really great journey, but a really good learning curve.
Do you remember any of the resources you turned to for the running the business part?
We definitely, so in that time when we were going out to cafes, we spent a large portion of that time, I guess, meeting either sort of, you know, people really high up in the FMCG category. So we knocked on a couple of high execs from Coca-Cola's door and asked if they wanted a coffee and a few different things to really pick their brains and get an understanding. And we actually, pretty early on, we got a minor shareholder into the business who essentially started a pretty big FMCG company. He started flavored straws. You may not have them in the US, but they're called sipper straws, and they basically have beads of chocolate and strawberry in them. You put them in milk, and it's like a milkshake. But he founded that, and so he was a great mentor from us from basically day dot. Really sort of, you know, letting us kind of see the pitfalls ahead of time. That's
awesome. So it sounds like he really played a big role in helping overcome those roadblocks you first hit.
Definitely.
Cool. So how big is Nexba now in terms of both market size and team size?
Yeah, so Nexba in the iced tea category is about 5% of the total Australian market. We recently launched into our, I guess, naturally sugar-free soft drink range, which is really, I guess, where the mass market is still in that soft drink area. And this year we're sort of on track for about just over 300% growth from last financial year. So we've seen a massive inroads, I guess, once moving from iced tea is still a small industry in Australia, but obviously that soft drink is huge. From a team perspective, we have just gone through a really big growth phase internally, and I think we'll have about 12 people by January. But we outsource. The majority of all of our manufacturing is now outsourced to a company in Sydney. And then we also do all our 3PL stuff as well. So we really focus on, I guess, the stuff we're good at. And that's the innovation piece and the marketing piece of the brands. And really have found the best partners to partner with the stuff that they're best at, which is the manufacturing piece.
That's great. It seems that partnerships are really crucial when it comes to any industry that involves, you know, retail and manufacturing.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, you need the partner we've got is best in class. They're a global manufacturer. So they have all the best standards. And Australia's got a really good reputation in manufacturing, and there's a reason for that, and it's because manufacturers like this exist, and we've got such stringent regulations for food regulations.
Right. Makes sense. So you said that you are set to grow 300% this year, which is awesome. Yeah. Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you.
What's attributed to that growth?
I guess primarily the innovation piece. So all the NPD we're bringing out, we're focusing. We launched in iced tea because we knew we could kind of get a foothold in the market. It was always the dream of ours to be, I guess, providing healthy beverages en masse. And given that soft drinks is such a big consumer category, being able to do that and offer a naturally sugar-free soft drink, which hasn't been done, we're first to market in that in Australia, has really sort of seen everyone jumping on board and going, wow, this is amazing. And it's provided the majority of our growth this year.
Yeah, it seems like you've really managed to combine that first to market, the speed part, as well as the branding part. Nexba seems to have like a fun brand that people like as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a focus for us to try and maintain that sort of challenger brand vibe, and really, just really be as fun as we can and staying true to our vision.
Yeah. So now that you've hit that, you're hitting that 300% growth. What's your next growth goals? What's the next step?
I guess from a long-term perspective, we've got a really clear 3 areas that we want to grow. Accelerating the domestic growth in Australia and really owning the soft drink category here is number one. And as you guys can imagine, Australia's got all the same big companies that you do in the US. We've got Coke, we've got Pepsi, all of these really big Goliath companies, and we're starting to really get traction on there. So we want to really expand that and do it in the way that is continue to be first to market with the naturally sugar-free stuff. So that's, I guess, number one for us. Number two is really start the global expansion piece as well. So we're confident, countries like the US and the UK are on the same sort of trend as Australia with the anti-sugar sentiment. And we know that's a really big opportunity there. So we want to get, I guess, the Nexba brand and that Australian story out to the UK and the US in 2017. And then thirdly, we really want to focus more heavily on the R&D and really continue that innovation pipeline, which can extend probably outside of beverages as well, into all products that have sugar. We can really translate that naturally sugar-free formulation into other products.
Right. So do you have any specific metrics behind those goals that you've identified?
We do. So, we really try to track our metrics pretty carefully. We have our sort of sales indicators, which track our revenue, GP, trade spend against customers, etc. And we know where we need to be, obviously, and the targets that we have. And then we've also got our operational indicators, which kind of show us appropriate stock levels, service levels into customers, and that from a manufacturing point of view, we need the correct yield and all that kind of stuff. So we need to be hitting, I guess, those KPI/metrics to make sure we're on track to achieve the goals that we want to achieve financially and from a vision point of view as well.
Gotcha. How would the process look like of identifying those as meaningful goals?
Yeah, so it's always a fun process. We basically have a quarterly executive strategy session, and that we spend a lot of time, I guess, looking at the future and setting those targets that are going to help us reach those goals. We've done that, I guess, pretty much since day dot, since we started, and so now it's more about making sure we're on track and really checking the progress against those goals every time we meet, to ensure that we're on track to reach the goals.
And how are you tracking that progress?
So those metrics that I mentioned before, we have them up in, I guess, Gecko boards up in the office around on a couple of different screens, and it's so real time. All of our staff can see everything that's going on. We can ensure that everyone is aware. All of our sales team, they're focused on what they want to achieve and what they have to achieve, and our operations team likewise, and marketing team. So everyone can see that real time. And then obviously from a executive point of view as well, we can take a snapshot of all those metrics from Gecko board and present it in our executive meeting to make sure that we are on track.
Have you found that transparency has played a role in motivating employees, or is it other things that you think motivates them more so?
There's no doubt, and I'll give you an example. We had a bit of an issue with one of our screens, Gecko board screens, and it's actually our sales screen for a couple of weeks. And noticeably, our sales team didn't have the same kind of drive and motivation to hit that because they didn't know what the number was.
Right.
They didn't have that visibility. So having that visibility absolutely motivates them to hit their targets. We obviously use other things, incentives and whatnot, to motivate people as well. But I think the visibility piece and, for lack of a better word, the ability to gamify, I guess, the workplace as well. People really want to feel like they're hitting their targets, and doing it in a way which is fun is the key to what we find motivating our staff.
Awesome. Interesting. So are there any other approaches to communicating like bigger, loftier goals outside of the metrics themselves, like the vision for the company?
Yeah, definitely. So we have, every Monday we have our team huddle. It basically involves everyone getting together 8:30 on a Monday morning with a coffee, and going through, I guess, the big things that we're doing, this month or this year. And really making sure that if that changes, if there's been some changes in the executive meeting, that everyone's brought up to speed, and making sure, I guess, we're on track. The whole team is on track to achieve everything we're trying to do.
Awesome. So that's your approach to staying focused.
Yeah, which is incredibly difficult as a startup challenger brand. We really want to encourage, I guess, that creativity piece. So it is always difficult to stay focused, and that's why we need, I guess, these things implemented to make sure that we do stay focused.
That's a good point. How have you been able to balance that creativity piece and wanting to encourage people to bring their ideas to the table and the focus on those numbers?
It's really difficult, and it's not always as simple as saying stay focused. It does take a lot of self-control. Everyone that works, right from myself and Troy, and the whole team, everyone that comes into this business has an entrepreneurial mindset, and inherently that they're going to be a creative person and wants to sort of challenge the status quo. So it's always a challenge to make sure that we can really stay focused on our targets. And that's why it helps having, I guess, all these metrics around us on a day-to-day basis. If we're going off on a tangent too much, we can always kind of pull it back and say, look, this is awesome. We love this creativity, and let's find a time and place to talk about that. But right now we need to stay focused on what we're doing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Has there been any specific recruitment strategies for finding these entrepreneurial people that are a good fit?
We've used heaps of different types of ways to do that. I think we've had varying success in different areas. One of the best ways that we've found to recruit people into the company has been through our existing networks. I think we have also used recruitment companies to varying success as well. We've got some really good people out of that. But I think when you use your own network, you've got the challenge of you want to make sure that you have diversity in the business. So you don't necessarily want like-minded people, two like-minded people. So it's a little bit sort of like there's no guaranteed way to get the best people. But I think within your network, you're always going to have a really good pool of people that are going to be similar to you, but diversified enough to really challenge.
Yeah. So are most of your people HQ people in Sydney? Are they all in Sydney?
So everyone's in Sydney, apart from we've got a few, sales and merchandising people across the country. Yeah.
What's the startup environment like there?
Sydney's got a pretty good, intense startup, which is good. Most of that is around the tech and digital space. There's a lot of sort of young companies coming up in that area, particularly. From a manufacturing point of view, it's not really suited towards young brands, and that's, I guess, why we're getting a lot of traction with our key accounts that we deal with. Is that people want to see more manufacturing business in Australia, but certainly for startups in the tech and digital space, Sydney's a great place to be. Yeah.
Why is it that they want to see more manufacturing, just for jobs and things like that?
I think Sydney's Australia's a great place to live, and as such, we do labour costs and all that kind of stuff are a bit higher, so it is a bit of a challenge for Australian companies to compete from a cost level with global companies as well, and so it's unusual, I guess, to see manufacturing companies, particularly in the beverage space in Australia. And that's, I guess that's why this has kind of resonated with so many people, the Nexba story, and that's why it's getting so much traction.
Gotcha. Awesome. So you're 12 people in house now and are seeing like great growth. What are your current challenges?
Current challenges is, I guess, Nexba has a phenomenal product, but we certainly don't have the, I guess, above the line budgets that a lot of these multinational beverage companies would have. So one of the biggest challenges is how do we get if we can have a conversation with every single Australian and explain to them what Nexba is, and why it's better for you, and that it tastes phenomenal, all these different things, I think we would win over every single Australian. So it's about that brand awareness piece and getting the message out there that there is an alternative to these high sugar drinks, and that they do taste as good or better. And Nexba's that brand.
Cool. So what have been your most successful channels for getting the word out so far?
So to date, we've basically grown completely organically. We've spent such a small amount on any kind of marketing above the line strategy. There's been, I guess, some small digital type stuff. We really early on, we created the Nexba story video and a few sort of little adverts as well. And that was really important for us because it allowed us to really go out and tell the Nexba story and engage and have fun with consumers on what the Nexba brand is all about. And obviously there was a little bit of spend put behind that. But I think we're excited because with the growth that we're seeing over the next 12 months, we can start implementing whether it's digital strategies, outdoor media strategies, radio strategies. We sort of now have that budget to have those conversations with the Australian public. So it's an exciting place to be.
Yeah, for sure. That video that you mentioned, which we'll link to in the post to accompany the episode, was a ton of fun. We really, really liked it and used that as inspiration of our own future marketing.
Yeah, cool.
What inspired you guys to make that video specifically?
I guess just knowing that we wanted to, sitting down and telling the story to someone is awesome. We love doing that and really going through how Nexba started and that whole piece. But I guess we wanted to do that in a minute 30 clip to show people what the Nexba story is in a really fun way, and give them really engage them and want them to relate to the brand because it's really relatable. At the end of the day, Troy and I are just two Aussie guys. We're sort of, kind of a really relatable pair of blokes. So it's easy for people to want to just get involved in the Nexba story when they see a fun video like that.
Definitely. So you touched on it a little bit, but how specifically would you define Nexba's brand and voice?
So for us, it's always been, I guess, a real evolutionary thing, the brand and voice of Nexba. We do have, and from time to time, we've had our different marketing strategies, which really tidies that up. But it's about making sure that we're on track to achieve our vision of what we wanted to do. So in terms of what the discussions we have around what should Nexba look like and how should it talk, it's really got to stay aligned with getting, those healthy beverages out to the Australian public and doing it in a way which is engaging and fun.
Yeah. Cool. Any other words of advice to new and young founders who are just getting started or who are at the same level as you?
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing is you got to stick it out, right? And you got to really believe in your idea. A startup business is such a roller coaster. So you've got to be prepared to go through the highs and lows and come out the other side as a success. And having that support network behind you is key to being able to ride those highs and lows. So it's going to be tough, but if you believe in your idea, I think anyone can do it.
One other question: if someone doesn't really have friends and family who get the idea, who are supportive but might not be able to really be a sounding board for them, are there any other places like mentors or someone else who you'd suggest?
Yeah, I think there's a whole bunch, and I can only speak about Sydney, but there's a whole bunch of kind of startup groups which offer support and different things. And I think getting a mentor early on, it doesn't have to be family. And we've had several mentors that are outside of family. And I would actually suggest that you look outside of family for a mentor. But it's, it really helps you kind of just get through everything. So there's lots of different mechanisms outside close family and friends that you can use for support.
Yeah, totally. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
No worries. Well, thanks for having us, Michelle.
Yeah, this has been awesome. Thank you for listening to Gecko Board's Secrets for Scaling podcast. Hope to catch you next time.